For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us so that you can discover your journey on the mountain, where every path leads to purpose.
National headlines and the local stories you care about. WLBB, Carrollton, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3.
Good morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Graddick, your host. Delighted to have you with us. And we've got a very special program. This is not my normal day, but I'm very pleased to be able to bring to you this morning Congressman Brian Jack. He represents the 3rd Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Before we kind of get into all the meat and potatoes of the whole thing, you're in town. You're in Carrollton today. I understand you've got an event at UWG right after this program.
I do. So I got a couple things going on in Carrollton today. First and foremost, bringing an investment, a federal investment in infrastructure and safety improvements on the campus of West Georgia. So I'm proud to deliver $637,250 in safety and infrastructure improvements, specifically to help some of the stormwater repair, some stormwater infrastructure repair. So I'm excited to deliver that support today. And then additionally, this afternoon, I'll be meeting with a group of citizens who wanted to connect and reach out. So I'm excited to see them and love being in Carrollton, like being on your show. It was a very special experience over the last couple of years getting to come in and talk to you. So look forward to this conversation.
Unlike, I guess, some of the other hosts that do this program, I like to do bios. And because there's probably plenty of our listeners that just don't really know who you are. So bear with me for about 60 seconds. Brian Jack was one of President Trump's most trusted allies who worked by his side for 9 years, a 6th-generation Georgian. Brian was raised in Fayette County, a graduate of Woodward Academy, where he played basketball and baseball. You any good?
You'll have to look at my highlights.
Okay, I'll take that as not so much. Following graduation from Pepperdine University, Brian pursued a career in advocacy for conservative values, working for the great Dr. Ben Carson and the movement to strengthen the United States-Israel relationship. 2016, the timing was right, and Brian joined President Trump's campaign. He caught the wave, as you say, as I say. Brian worked in the White House from the first to the last day of President Trump's administration. President Trump appointed Brian to serve as the White House political director responsible for implementing the president's America First agenda. He's a member of the Georgia Historical Society, the Fayette County Historical Society, and Sons of the American Revolution. A big-time sports fan, passionate fan of everything from Atlanta Braves to Peachtree City's semi-pro soccer team. With that said, okay, let's, obviously we're going to, a lot of today's issues to jump into. I've wondered how to jump into Iran in terms of the topic of Iran. And to me, I think the best way to give it the perspective is from what we've been told and are trusting to believe that we were 25 days away from Iran having a nuclear weapon. And if that had been the case, it doesn't take too much to imagine a nuclear weapon being fired at Israel and Israel firing a nuclear weapon back at Iran, and then the whole world would change forever. How, in your opinion, as we look at the ceasefire and the 10-point plan, the 15-point plan, how do you evaluate Operation Epic Fury?
Well, I think let's first start off, and many of your listeners remember Iran in 1979, and you remember what happened at our embassy. And over the last, ever since 1979, over the last 40 years plus, you've seen Iranian acts of aggression across the region. American service members that lost their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan were, I wouldn't say the majority, but an overwhelming amount were at the hands of IEDs that were laid by Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps members. So they have, throughout the entirety of this fundamentalist regime, they have targeted American service members and American lives. So when you mention Israel, I certainly recognize that, but I also acknowledge that if they had a nuclear weapon, they would absolutely deploy it to wipe out our bases in the Middle East. So because of that, to your point, President Trump assessed with his intelligence capacity that Iranian officials were on the threshold of developing that nuclear weapons capability, so he took decisive action. Operation Epic Fury, just as a reminder, we all saw what happened. It was on a Friday night. We all got alerts on our phone. And the president, in that initial speech, he suggested that the operation would last 4 to 6 weeks. 38 days was the exact number of days in which hostilities took place. And throughout that time, let's just review the facts. 150 Iranian vessels destroyed on the water. Air capability completely eliminated. Their nuclear weapons capacity effectively eradicated. So the core objectives of Operation Epic Fury have been met. And as we saw later, or I should say earlier this week, President Trump negotiated a ceasefire with the Iranians. They've pledged to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. I've already seen gas prices fall the last 2 days, which is, I think, a welcome sign for everyone in the community. But when you listen to this, as you're listening to this on your drive to work or at home, it's important to remember the threat it poses to you and it poses to our country, because an Iranian nuclear weapons state, this is a fundamentalist regime that does not see the world the way you and I see it. This is a regime that sees the world in the context of, can we make the entire world a caliphate or can we not? That's how they view the world. So having a nuclear weapon in their hands is an absolute objective that we have to prevent. And because of that, President Trump took decisive action, and I want to honor those 13 American service members who lost their lives. They're heroes, and they should be remembered as heroes for the rest of their lives. But because of the incredible might that this military has, we should all be proud of our military capability, rescuing our pilot, everything that happened over the last few weeks. The Iranians do not have a nuclear weapons capability any further, and their ability to wage war and harm Americans in the region has been completely decimated.
Well, you referenced it, that they, for a caliphate, the 12th month, and they may not be somebody you can negotiate with. I mean, history, really, the 47 years really indicates that they're non-negotiable. So what happens next if they are?
Well, I think the one thing they do understand, and the president has certainly laid out the threat that will await them if they don't cooperate and reopen the Strait of Hormuz for the global oil flow. By the way, it's another reminder why we all support President Trump's vision, and something on which I campaigned. Let's establish American energy independence so we don't have to rely on oil as much. Many people listening may remember the Saudi oil embargo way back when. So being beholden to Middle East for power doesn't necessarily help, and it's something we should talk about later. But with respect to how you negotiate with the Iranians, I certainly I do believe that they understood the threat that was facing them, and as President Trump earlier this week articulated, they would be met with a force they've never experienced before. So I think that's what led to the ceasefire.
So your good friend, Vice President J.D. Vance, is on his way to Pakistan, along with Steve Witkoff, I believe it is. Are you optimistic?
He was just in Budapest. There's a big election in Hungary in just about a week's time. And JD, to your points, I think he too has been very vocal in his support of ensuring that we're able to meet our military objectives here and prevent the Iranians from ever having a nuclear weapon. But at the same time, he's a tough negotiator, as are the other officials traveling with him. So I have full faith and confidence in our negotiation team. And I really, this should be one of those issues in my mind that unites Americans across ideological spectrum. Unfortunately, everything is political these days. Everyone tries to draw political points and score political points. But when you're talking about the Iranians and you're talking about a nuclear weapon, I think every American should understand that having a nuclear weapon in the hands of the Ayatollahs is a very bad thing for our country.
Two other things I want to kind of point out, and you've slightly referenced them. To me, when we went in to get the weapons systems operator, and we dedicated 100 plus 200, servicemen and women to do that, it really reaffirmed the ethos that no man left behind, which we had gotten away from during the Afghanistan withdrawal, and certainly during Benghazi when we lost 4 Americans, including the ambassador. To me, I think that was just as much as Artemis II coming back to Earth to reinforce that cultural standard that No Man Left Behind, I thought was just amazingly wonderful.
Well, and I can share some elements that have been made public, but how they were able to accomplish that is amazing. And that service member who ejected from his plane relied on the training, and that's a really good example and a reminder for all of the listeners who have family who served or currently have somebody that's in the service today. You've got these long and extensive trainings, and it's for a purpose. And in this case, the training really came in handy because when he ejected, he had to effectively cloak himself for 36 hours as he awaited rescue. And the Iranian state media was broadcasting massive bounties. They were trying to mobilize all militia in the area to go hunt our soldier down. And if you look at how that was accomplished, you had our intelligence services disseminating disinformation to help cloak him in darkness, and he was able to use his own training to hide himself. And from the moment he was shot down to the moment he was rescued, we knew exactly where he was the entire time. And I'm not sure any other country could have that technology to accomplish that other than ours.
One other thing I want to mention before we leave this topic and we go to commercial break. It seems like the president is playing chess. If you neuter Iran, if you restore Venezuela to a free market economy, if you deal with Cuba, if you deal in all of these realms, you're taking away the tentacles of communist China to the point that now that large threat, i.e. taking over the Republic of China on Taiwan, is minimized. Basically, it looks like he's playing chess.
And the way he negotiates for some is unorthodox, but it is proven time and time again to be effective. He has said, and I do love how he presents this, that, and he said this publicly, so I don't mind sharing it, but he's noted that in the past, he will take a very extreme position in negotiation, but the person with whom he's negotiating or the foreign country with whom he's negotiating, they don't have 100% clarity that it's a bluff. No one's going to think Donald Trump's bluffing, and I think that very much helps protect American interests at home. And I think it is, ultimately what he continues as his campaign pledge to put American lives first and put American members of our military first. You saw that on full display with him mobilizing that operation to rescue our downed pilot, and very, very proud of what he's accomplished, and I'm proud to support him. But what will happen next, and helpful for your listeners to know, if there is a peace agreement negotiated, Congress passed a law back in 2015 that requires any nuclear weapons deal with Iran to have congressional oversight and authority. So you'll hear some conversations about that over the coming weeks. We'll see what unfolds, but I look forward to leveraging your concerns and articulating your concerns to those who are listening that are my constituents, and likewise your analysis of the deal so that I can effectively vote on behalf of our district.
Whenever action like this is taken, your colleagues, if someone brings up about the War Powers Act, the role of Congress, and it's just like the never-ending debate when these kind of things, whether it's the Syrian attack, So how do you live in that world where you're all of a sudden you're surrounded by some members who
Well, I mean, you and a lot of people listening to this remember politics used to stop at our water's edge. That was an idiom that was a tried and true principle of American politics, which unfortunately, as with many norms and standards in American politics, has completely been destroyed over the recent years. So we've found there's a challenge sometimes when the president's administration is trying to brief Congress on military action, it quickly leaks, endangering our service members because there are just some members of the Democrat Party who hate him so much that they will leak anything that comes their way. So because of that, it's very frustrating. It all becomes political, and I think that frustrates a lot of listeners and people who vote. They get frustrated with Congress because it is such a political quagmire at times. But to be clear, in this instance, President Trump made a decision, and he carried out a military action because of a threat that he viewed that posed an imminent threat that was posed to our country. So because of that, I think that supersedes some of the conversations that people have. If we're going to have a long, protracted war, Congress obviously has to have a role. But this operation lasted 38 days, and I think everyone hopes that the deal that's negotiated going forward completely eradicates their nuclear weapons program, does not enable them to ever reach the threshold they once were trying to reach.
Our guest this morning is Congressman Brian Jack, represents the 3rd Congressional District in the U.S. House. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll talk a little bit about politics, and we already have a little bit, but a little bit more. And we'll be back after these words.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Oak Mountain Academy specializes in a customized designed academic approach tailored to meet the needs of our families. Our lower division prepares students with the necessary foundation to build excellence. Our middle division provides students with over 15 course offerings, providing them with opportunities to explore their talents and gifts. Our upper division provides personalized academic journeys, allowing them to achieve their dreams. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to journey with us. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us, where every path leads to purpose.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Greidinger, host, and we are very pleased to have in studio Congressman Brian Jack of 3rd Congressional District in the U.S. House. We're on 106.3 on the FM, 1330 AM. We're streaming live to our website and to our News Talk 1330 Facebook page. It'll be archived on the YouTube channel, and they'll be shared on other Facebook pages. Whew. That's way too much for me. All right, politics. To the north of here, there's a district called 14. And it's been in national news for quite a while now, and I come from that area and have some knowledge of that. But the special election to fill the seat of the resigning, what was her name? Marjorie Taylor or something, went to Clay Fuller by 56%. And the Cobb County voted Democrat. Paulding County was split, but the rest of the place, all the other counties, Dade, Walker, Catoosa, Murray, Whitfield, Chattooga, Floyd, and Polk, went Republican. So you know Clay Fuller. What's your assessment? That's a pretty strong win.
So Clay and I have known each other for quite some time. He supported my campaign in 2024, and I was a strong advocate for him getting into the race. And we spoke almost every day throughout it as I kind of counseled him through the race. And first and foremost, I mean, it's important to note at the outset that it was a double-digit win, and that's despite Democrats mobilizing everything they possibly had to try to flip this seat. So we're very proud of that accomplishment. Clay will be sworn in next week, and we'll one of my jobs in Congress is to help people get their committee assignments. So I'll be working to help him get a good suite of committee assignments, those that are vacant now. But ultimately, what you saw over the course of that, and I think it does portend, a trend in the future is, Democrats are trying to do everything they can to mobilize everywhere across the country, including in our states, and it is something that all of us should pay attention to going into November. You do have a trend in midterm elections where the party in power sometimes finds problems at the ballot box because they're just not as motivated to get out and vote as the party of the opposition. And today's Democrat Party is not the Democrat Party of yesterday. It's not your father's or your grandfather's Democrat Party.
Zell Miller, Tom Murphy.
It is not Roy Barnes, Zell Miller, Tom Murphy. Speaking of a Haralson County guy, this is not what it used to be. So we've got, and it's one of the things I'm going to be doing throughout the course of the next 6 months, is I'm going to be leveraging my political network, investing the resources that I generate into the turnout apparatus here in Carroll County and elsewhere to try to generate as many Republican votes this November, because you got a lot of people that are listening that voted in 24, but some of y'all may not be as inclined to vote in 26. We've got to set the stage and the stakes for what this election is for our state.
I understand if the Democratic party fields more and more local candidates, then that's supposed to bubble up, whereby there'll be more Democratic voters for U.S. Senate, governor, et cetera.
It's one of the things Speaker Gingrich, also somebody who used to represent this area, often told folks, including me, is that it's at the congressional level, you want to recruit somebody to run in every district, despite the fact some districts may be 80% Democrat, because it galvanizes turnout and gets people excited. There's a lot of synergy there. So we'll see how that unfolds. But what I will say is, as it relates to Clay Fuller, double-digit win. And we saw this, by the way, there was a state Senate race down in Macon a few weeks ago, and State Senator McNeil now was elected, and that's despite Kamala Harris and Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona, the astronaut. They all parachuted into this small state Senate district around Macon, and he still won by double-digit points because Republicans were able to turn the vote out and get the word out. And ultimately, that's a lot of what we're trying to do, is just remind people when the election date is and who's running.
You know, we hear over and over again about, as far as the midterms, that it's going to be on the pocketbook issues, affordability, et cetera, and the economy. What's your thoughts on how that's going to play out in the midterms?
Well, first and foremost, what I think you're going to see over the course of the next few months is our economy achieve record levels that it hasn't achieved before. You've already seen the stock market do that, but I understand you're looking at gas prices, grocery prices. You want to see costs go down. But I want to rewind people's minds back to 2017. And in December 2017, I worked at the White House at the time. President Trump passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. And if you can, now fast forward a little bit in your minds to early 2019, and really right before COVID, throughout the entirety of 2019, our economy was roaring. And it's in large part because those tax cuts and the tax policy that was put in place in 2017, it took about a year for everything to pick up. And if you look at the timeline for us, last July, on July 4th, we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the largest tax cut in American history. I voted for the largest tax cut in American history. I voted to unleash American energy dominance and independence. So I think what you're going to find is this summer, it usually takes about a year for some of these things to really settle in. But I think this summer you're going to see the economy reach record heights, and I think that's going to be great for our country. Of course, we always want to see GDP continue to grow, and as it does, I think you're going to find, to your point, some of those affordability issues that Democrats have tried to run on in recent months fall squarely into the hands of Republicans.
You know, to me, sometimes I feel like the most important topic that we could address, or any federal official could address, elected official, would be the debt and the deficit. Just like in our personal lives or in our business lives, if you run a real high debt or deficit, that at some point there'll be a day of reckoning. A $39 trillion debt and $2 trillion deficit approximately. I mean, do you agree with that? I mean, how is this ever going to be resolved, or is it? Or is we just going to call the currency in and inflate, or what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, the president's perspective and likewise our perspective right now is the more we can grow our economy, if we expand it by another point, another 2%, number 3%, that's going to help us reduce that debt to GDP ratio. But the ultimate concern that I think a lot of us have as it relates to the debt is you continue to fund government programs, we have to, continue to fund government programs and government entities. Ronald Reagan said it best: the closest thing to eternal life on earth is a government program or a government department, agency, bureau. So one of the things I've been excited to do is work with DOGE. I'm on the DOGE subcommittee. Worked with Elon's team when he was leading it, and now that subcommittee is going to be led by Tim Burchett from Tennessee. And if anyone follows him on social media, I think anybody can tell that guy's very determined. Our chairman's very determined to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. So I think that's one way we can really take a whack at the debt that our country has and faces, and trying to get us to a place where we're able to purely and efficiently balance our budget. By the way, I should note, we House Republicans just 2 weeks ago passed a proposed law that forces a balanced budget. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But House Republicans are continually on the record in support of this. The DOGE efforts continue, and Elon, even though he's not administering that program right now, is certainly supportive of what Tim Burchett and what we're doing in Congress as relates to trying to reduce our waste, fraud, and abuse.
Well, you're not optimistic that balanced budget legislation will pass in the Senate.
No, but again, I mean, it's just one of the things that I think frustrates a lot of people. You've got this very hyper-partisan, warped world in which everyone knows this is a problem. Maybe some of our Democrat colleagues don't think this is a problem. That's their prerogative. It's a problem that they think that, but this is the type of thing that you wish you could see some people come together and figure out.
Well, back to the personal lives and business lives. In your personal life, if you're not making enough money, go get a second job, and then you cut expenses. But my Lord, $39 trillion and $2 trillion deficit. I mean, I appreciate wanting to grow it and bringing investment into America. I think it was $17 trillion presidents brought into America, but it just seems like it's getting pretty near out of control.
Well, and I completely understand that frustration that people have, but what I will say is, to your point with the president, the budget, by the way, that he laid out, his budget chair, Russ Vought's going to come, or budget director, I should say, is going to come to testify before Congress about the budget the president proposed. It is a wish list of conservative priorities on which all of us have campaigned for many, many years, and it drastically reduces the size and scope of the government. We'll see that unfolds later this year, but I do want to commend the administration. Earlier this year, usually Congress passes laws, and by what we call continuing resolutions, we basically kick the can down the road and say, okay, government's running, let's just give it a couple more months, and we're not going to change the spending levels. So for years now, we've been operating under what the Biden administration effectuated. So we've been operating under that. This past year, within the last year, Congress has passed 11 of 12 appropriations bills. We'll get to Homeland Security, I'm sure, soon, and all of which were funded at Trump levels. So you've got Trump-level spending right now, Trump-level priorities that are being administered. That's a big win for us, and now we've just got to take care of Department of Homeland Security if we can get the Democrats on board or use some procedural maneuvers to do it without them.
Yeah, we're gonna, after we take our next break, we'll talk about that. Before we get off the quote unquote political segment, locally on a regular basis, and I assume in other parts of your district, of the 3rd district, you have what's called the No Kings protest, and No Kings, No War. When you see that, what's your thoughts?
Well, look, I think that first and foremost, I would love to look into the funding for some of these entities. It's one of the things that Congress is going to continue to investigate. A lot of the left-leaning protests across the country in recent years have been funded by elements of the Chinese Communist Party and some other.
Neville Singham.
It's exactly a name that comes up a lot. You're well-researched, well-briefed. So I sure would like to look into the funding of some of this. And the problem is you have a lot of foreign countries that want to foment nothing but chaos in our country, and they want to divide Americans against each other. And I think that's very frustrating. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that are listening that remember the time when you could have policy disputes, but you could be friends and enjoy yourself. I see this every day. I serve on one of the most contentious committees, the Rules Committee. And I'll tell you, you've got a lot of folks on our side who try to befriend and try to find common ground with the Democrats. But they, every single time we're in that committee hearing, demonstrate just how they adhere to a principle of if it's their way or their highway. And I don't think that's how our country was built. I don't think that's how our country should function. So when I see this, I certainly understand people have the right to freely assemble and freely exercise their grievances with but it doesn't. But to me, it raises questions, because whether it looks organic or not, it raises questions about who's funding it and from where some of these people are coming.
There's the phenomenon that's often referred to as TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. You worked for him and you were with him for 9 years. When you hear people that obviously really just hate his guts, what's your reaction, having worked and known the man?
Well, I'd like to get into that personally, but I'm going to just speak a bit politically first. First, I think it's horrible politics. I mean, I think the Democrat Party for the last decade has built their entire political apparatus around hating one man, Donald Trump. If you ask someone on the street, and that'd be a fun segment, maybe you and I could do it, just go up to a Democrat and say, what does your party stand for? Give me a policy position your party believes in. And I would be very interested to hear what they say, because their entire apparatus has been built around hating Donald Trump. And as it relates to to him, I mean, he says it best. Look, he wants to make America great again. He wants lower taxes. He wants clean streets. He wants safe environment for your family to grow up in. I mean, how are you able to look at those kind of core policy priorities and disrupt or dispute what he stands for, other than the fact that they've just demonized this man? And but you know what? The American people spoke. The greatest compliment to him is, despite everything that was thrown his way, the prosecutions, the indictments, everything they tried to do to him, the American people overwhelmingly elected him in 2024.
Our guest this morning is Congressman Brian Jack of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing the 3rd Congressional District, and we'll be back with more after this.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Oak Mountain Academy is a vibrant community built on innovation, academic excellence, and a 64-year legacy of shaping community leaders. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school at Oak Mountain Academy, inviting you to visit the mountain and experience firsthand the passion, purpose, and personalized education that defines our school. Come see how our mission and vision come to life each day. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us so that you can discover your journey on the mountain, where every path leads to purpose.
All right, good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. We're having a good time with Brian Jack, a 3rd District U.S. Representative. And I failed in my little intro at the beginning to mention the committees you're on. You're on the Rules Committee, but you're also been assigned to the Steering Committee, which has influence throughout. Give us a little definition of what that is.
Sure. So when you run for Congress and get elected to Congress, you're elected on a Tuesday. The following Friday, the freshman class elects its leadership. And we have 35 Republican freshmen, and our freshman class is growing. Clay makes 36. And the freshman class, right after we were all elected together, elected me to lead them and put me on the steering committee, which is the committee that controls all committees. So it's a committee of committees if you think about it, but it controls committee assignments, and it's actually a vestige of a revolt against the speaker in the early 19-teens. They wanted to disperse some of his power onto the broader Republican conference. So regardless of the history, it's an important committee and gives our district a little bit more influence than others would otherwise have as freshmen. So I'm on the steering committee. Speaker Johnson appointed me to the Rules Committee. It is the oldest committee in Congress. It is the committee through which the Bill of Rights flowed, and it is the committee through which all legislation flows. So I've got a chance to weigh in on every policy matter that comes before us.
And when you say it flows, it's whether or not it gets to the floor.
Whether or not it gets to the floor, and then does it get amended in committee. You've got a bill, you remember Schoolhouse Rock, you go through your committee process, you elevate it through the committee, now it's got to come to rules. It's the traffic cop, they say, of Congress. So I'm excited to be on that. Also on Oversight Committee, so you see a lot of contentious hearings there, and I'm on the Small Business Committee. And I should note, I chair the Small Business Subcommittee on Innovation. We talked about the sports I played growing up. I held a hearing on minor league baseball last summer, which was broadly attended and widely covered, and was able to feature the minor league baseball team in Columbus. I represent the northwestern part of the city of Columbus, and they just brought a minor league baseball team to the city about a year and a half ago. So I was able to give them a lot of exposure, give our district a lot of exposure, and talk about the great things that sports does for our community.
You remember the name of the team?
Columbus Clingstones. I was there.
Columbus what?
The Columbus Clingstones, and I just want you to know.
What's a clingstone?
It's a type of peach. The pit is to what it's referring as it relates to the stone, but it's a type of peach. But I say you should know. we should have actually started with this, but I do the color commentary at Clingstone's games, so I've got some radio experience now to show. But
I'll be the judge of that.
I did some color commentary on Friday night, so I'll send you the link. You can listen.
Yeah, then we'll tell you to keep your day job or whatever. Well, that's cool. And so the steering committee assignment. So the steering committee, historically, when a legislator didn't behave, then the speaker would strip the committee assignment from the representative. So this kind of moves away from that.
Well, if you want to get into the history, you had an all-powerful speaker of the U.S. House in the 19-teens. Some of the reforms after that speaker was toppled was, can we create a committee that removes that power from the speaker and then empowers different sectors of the Republican conference? And over the last 110 years, we've seen that evolve into what's now today the steering committee. So the speaker has an outsized voice on it, no question, but I have a vote on that, which is a big deal for our district and a big deal for our state, frankly.
Let's talk about immigration. It seems to me that, and I think it would seem to most people, if you defund Homeland Security when you're at war with Iran, you're taking a big chance of a sleeper cell, or many sleeper cells, particularly after the open borders, the previous administration, of hitting us from within. Does that sound reasonable?
Well, look, I led debate on the floor to pass funding for Homeland Security, and will continue to lead debate on the floor when it comes up. House Republicans have 4 times now passed legislation to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security. Now, I just want to make sure everyone understands be very objective here. Department of Homeland Security does not just fund ICE and Border Patrol. It funds the U.S. Coast Guard. It funds TSA. It funds FEMA. So what you see today, we're in the 55th day of the Democrats' shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. What you see, and this is very objective, the Democrats are beholden to their radical left base that wants to defund ICE. They want to defund ICE and defund Border Patrol. They want to eliminate law enforcement at our border. That's what Democrats want to do, and there's no question about it. And because of that policy position, they have now held hostage our Coast Guard service members, our TSA members, our FEMA workers, all of whom depend on salaries to feed their families. And they're doing their job, and they're expected to get paid. Democrats will not allow them to be paid because they are demanding that we defund ICE and Border Patrol. So here's where we are. What the president and leadership in Congress has decided to do is use a different tool, a different tactic that does not bring that bipartisan consensus you want to see for spending priorities. That's what happens usually. You've got kind of bipartisan agreement to fund the government. And you know what we're going to do at this point, the play call is we're going to use this tool called reconciliation to fund Border Patrol and ICE, fully fund it for 3 years throughout the entirety of the president's second term. So, and you don't need one Democrat vote to do it. And then, of course, we'll fund the Department of Homeland Security through it. This is different than the normal appropriations process, which you usually want to have Republicans and Democrats come together to find a solution. But for all of their posturing, what they're going to end up with is a fully funded with boosted spending for Border Patrol and ICE. And I think you're going to see that's going to help protect our country. But I go back to the ultimate question is, why do Democrats want to eliminate law enforcement at our border? And I'll leave it to your listeners to answer that question.
Well, we referenced the No Kings protests, and you generally see in each of them something regarding ICE. And so how was that ball dropped, if you will, over the last few years?
Well, I mean, let me just go back to what the Democrats. It's not just defunding ICE. I mean, they want to effectively make life very uncomfortable for anybody working in that agency. They talk about masks. That's a good one you hear a lot of. They want to demask and unmask ICE. So the officials who are protecting our border have to wear a mask, and it's sad that you have to have this in our country today because they have to do it for their own family safety. Democrats will take any photo they can and dox the individual of showing their home address, their families, whatever. That's one of the reasons they've got to do it for their own safety, which is really concerning. So, what Republicans had initially presented, what House Republicans initially presented was a 60-day continuing resolution to say, okay, 60 days, we'll try to negotiate and try to find some common ground. But I'm telling you, you mentioned those No Kings protests. The Democrat left so good, the radical left elements so control the Democrat Party that they're not going to allow those Democrat senators to move forward. So we're going to use a different tool, and the end results, we're going to fully fund ICE and CBP fully fund it for 3 years, and all the posturing will have been for naught, other than the fact that they really disrupted the lives of our Coast Guard men and women.
If you create in blue states across the country, if you create sanctuary states, which were blue states, if you create sanctuary cities that are there, and then you open the borders, and people are drawn, the immigrants are drawn to those cities and states, and then they get NGOs support them, other welfare benefits. You're changing the makeup of those states, which means they get more congressional seats. By increasing the population, it also affects, of course, the Electoral College. It sounds like almost a devious scam of some sort.
A devious scam, but I want to personalize this, because it's not just, to your point, what could happen in our state, but this affects our community. Open border policies affect our community, and we had an incident, but it's important. I want everyone to hear what happened in our district down near Harris County just a few weeks ago. So Wayne Reynolds, a motor grader, someone who builds the roads upon which we all depend, was driving back to his family. He's a father and a grandfather, and a vehicle being driven by an illegal immigrant from Guatemala with a prior history of criminal acts, including a hit and run, T-boned Mr. Reynolds driving home and took his life. Wayne Reynolds lost his life at the hands of an illegal immigrant, and his family was devastated because yet again you saw a hit and run where members of the vehicle fled, but as they fled, Mr. Reynolds' life was leaving him, and that family reached out to my office and asked what we could do to help. So I picked up the phone, called Department of Homeland Security, got in touch with some officials at ICE and CBP, and no kidding, within a week, they were able to find and apprehend the illegal immigrant who was all public. You can see this for public record, the illegal immigrant who took the life of Mr. Reynolds. And that family has found relief that justice will be served. But this is someone who should not have been in our country, driving erratically, driving illegally, with a prior history of criminal acts. And this is another example of the scourge of illegal immigration within our community. The problem is that the left so demonizes and dehumanizes those who work at ICE and Border Patrol. This is a good example. Within a week, they were able to deliver some semblance of justice to the family. These are the same officers that did that for a family here in our district that the Democrats are trying to not just defund but dehumanize.
I understand, and I don't know that you can separate the illegal immigrant that has a violent criminal record from the others, even though they've all broken the law per se. But I understand there's an amnesty bill in the House, H.R. 4393, the Dignity Act. What's your thoughts on it? Yeah,
I'm not voting for it, not supporting it. I'm certainly not co-sponsoring it. So I recognize that. And I recognize that there are certainly some folks who want to find some solution to our immigration problem. But I think the first thing we've got to do, and the president's been very clear about this, you've got well over 1 million people, if not more, who were let into the country by Joe Biden who have a long record of criminal acts, including the illegal alien who took the life of one of our constituents. That's got to be priority one right now, and I don't want to have any conversations about others until we're able to fix that. Because to be clear, the president's policies have effectively sealed the border at levels that never we've seen before. The most secure border in American history. The president articulated exactly how that was during the State of the Union. So we've sealed the border, which is great. We've got to deal with what's happening within our country now, and I sure would like to see, and will continue to vote to fund and support the administration's efforts to deport the criminal illegal aliens who have wreaked havoc in some of our communities, including this individual who took the life of one of my constituents.
But under the Biden administration, we're talking 11 million plus.
No question.
And that's a lot.
You got to start with those who are finding the problems. But to your point, we can have those conversations thereafter. But I think the president's priority has been very clear. If you're in the country illegally, and especially if you're causing problems in our country, you should go back. And this country, let's just speak broadly about it. This country is the only country I'm aware of that effectively gives handouts to non-citizens. I mean, citizens of other countries come to this country and depend on the citizen welfare that's meant for our constituents and our U.S. citizens. So the president's policies is if you're a citizen of another country living here illegally, you should go back to the country from which you came and make it as great as you possibly can. But you shouldn't depend on the livelihoods of the people who are listening and some of my constituents if you're not a citizen of this country.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that plays out. Long term, even Ronald Reagan gave amnesty to 3.5 million. So it's the second part of what you're talking about down the road. That's going to be interesting, too.
Well, I will say, though, I don't think anybody's going to question President Trump's approach on immigration policy. It's what elected him in 2016, and I think it was what continues to sustain the movement he built. So I've got full faith and confidence in what he's going to do, but I just want to personalize for those who are listening. Just in our own community, we had a tragedy just a few weeks ago at the hands of an illegal immigrant.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But now, was this? And you said this? He was a truck driver,
motor grader.
Okay, right. But the
the illegal immigrant.
Yeah, from Guatemala.
He's driving a vehicle. I'm not sure. What his
was it? Was it a CDL license? Or
no. To be clear, it was
just another vehicle.
Just a vehicle.
Okay.
With many people in it.
I wanted to ask you about this because it's timely. Yesterday, seemingly out of nowhere, as a surprise to I think some of us, Melania Trump, who I'm sure you know, came out very strongly and condemned any lies about her and her connection to Jeffrey Epstein. But she also called pretty strongly, that's why I wanted to ask you, on Congress to let the survivors speak before Congress. So it's a topic that surfaced and wasn't really a topic at all for 4 years prior to Trump being elected. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, I understand the general feelings from which the First Lady comes, because for years now, you were talking about somebody who has been vilified beyond any means by the left. I mean, they do everything they can to, and what I think she's referring to, as she spoke yesterday, to just things that are made up. AI makes up a lot of stuff, and she's had to she suffered from it. You talk about online abuse; nobody experiences more of it than her. So she, I think, very much feels for that. But as it relates to the broader conversation, Democrats have tried to weaponize this Epstein scandal. Because in their minds it'll help them politically. But just to be clear, this administration has released more documents than any administration previously on Jeffrey Epstein. I'm on the House Oversight Committee, which is conducting the investigation into it, and I voted to subpoena Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and others to come in and have conversations about it. And this investigation is going to continue to unfold. We'll see what happens based on her call to action yesterday. But what I would say is I think it's important to remember anybody that's motivated by this topic. Donald Trump's administration has released millions of files as it relates to Jeffrey Epstein. You do not see that happen in Barack Obama's administration. You do not see that happen in Joe Biden's administration. So it's just very important to remember that Donald Trump has been the most transparent president on this.
If I vaguely remember, what was it, in 2019 that it was in his administration that Epstein was prosecuted?
Prosecuted, arrested, then prosecuted, and convicted. And likewise, I said, you had 4 years under the Biden administration. This was obviously a topic that a lot of people thought about then, and nothing happened. And the Trump administration's released a whole bunch of files. Congress passed a law for which I voted to compel the release of all the files. The Trump administration gladly released all the files. So we'll see what unfolds. But I think what comes from, I didn't speak to First Lady yesterday, but knowing her as I do, my instinct is that just the constant online abuse and just everything that comes her way probably prompted her to clarify exactly what was happening, because there's so much disinformation that is spread by the left.
She seems like a very strong woman.
As the president would tell you, absolutely. If you watch her movie, you can see that.
One thing I skipped over by mistake, I wanted to ask you about the SAVE Act, photo ID, and voting.
So the SAVE Act is something that I also led debate on the floor in favor of, and this is something we talked about when I was a candidate. We want to mandate that only U.S. citizens can vote in federal elections, and likewise require voter ID, but also proof of citizenship when you register to vote. That's now in the Senate, and again, I know it frustrates people, but we just got to remember the Senate needs 60 votes in order to pass any legislation. But there's talk now of eliminating the filibuster. So just as a reminder, you remember Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, the great scene of him delivering an impassioned filibuster. There's talk of eliminating the filibuster. We'll see what unfolds, but I view, as do others, that you shouldn't have what we call a silent filibuster. It's a zombie you hear Mike Lee and others online talking about this. But if you care so much to try to block legislation, the Senate does allow for unlimited debate unless there are enough votes to close that debate. Force the senators to go on the floor and have conversations. That's the perspective of many of my colleagues, is force senators to go on the floor, talk at length, and block us from the Save America Act. That's the official name of the bill now. Right now we have this thing called a silent filibuster where anything can be filibustered, but you don't have to get up and speak. You just say you don't want to vote, and I think you should force people to do that. And if they want to hold up the country for 30 or 45 days, Democrats that is, to block this, that they can try to do that. But I think that what you just mentioned, photo identification, we all know why. By the U.S. citizenship proof when registering to vote, these are common sense priorities that 80 to 90% of Americans agree with.
I remember President Trump saying something about he wanted to put all data centers on federal land. What is there latest and greatest on the data centers?
He rolled out the Ratepayer Protection Pledge, which is effectively if a company is going to need infrastructure, big company, Facebook, Google, if they need infrastructure to support what they're trying to do, they're going to have to pay for the rates, the energy rates that are driven from that. So that's what he rolled out at the State of the Union, and that continues to take shape, which I think is a welcome addition. But I also, as it relates to data centers, we had one in Coweta County just down the road approved on Tuesday by a 3-2 vote.
Right.
I talk a lot about, and I don't want to get super into the weeds, but within data centers, they've got racks, and those racks look like these big kind of, servers or whatever, if you envision it from movies and such. And there's one company that has a dominant market share. 95% of all racks are from one company specifically. And I sure would like to see some other companies. There's a great company with some folks and support out of Georgia Tech that's trying to innovate and develop an infrastructure within these data centers that requires 10% of the energy they currently need. To your point, and we should talk about Artemis because we got some suppliers in our district. But if we're able to send people to the moon, land on the moon, and we should be able to innovate and find a way to drastically reduce the energy required to power some of these centers. And I would really like to see some of that technology developed and maybe even incentivized.
Harrison and Carroll counties have made it very clear they don't want any data centers, and they've spoken. A lot of citizens have spoken very loudly to the planning, zoning, county commissioners, et cetera. As have others.
And it's a real concern because you've got water concerns, you've got energy concerns. But if we were able to develop some technology for especially the one that was just approved and it's not developed. I mean, it's out there. You just have to, the companies just have to buy it. I don't know how that unfolds with respect to incentives, but what I do know is that there's technology out there that could reduce by 90% the energy required for some of these data centers. Let's deploy it.
A couple of programs we've done on it. There's been talk of small modular reactors.
Nuclear reactors.
Yeah, I'd like to have get my hands on one of them.
I'm so too with the Iranians, and that's why we implemented Operation Epic Fury to ensure that didn't happen.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll get there someday. You mentioned Artemis too. I think Splashdown is today.
It is. So last week got a lot of attention. Atlanta TV came to my district and traveled across the district with me to see. I toured and promoted, frankly. We have 3 direct suppliers for the Artemis II mission in the Georgia's 3rd Congressional District. So in Peachtree City, Timber Products Inspection, they manufacture the wooden crates and the pallets that deliver the supplies to Artemis. Got them some exposure. Went to Universal Environmental Services. Who knew? But Peachtree City has an oil refinery, a re-refinery technically, and it's right on the train tracks by the airport there. And had some great conversations and tour. And the oil and the oil and that was used to propel and develop the rocket, but obviously propel it into space. Some of that was left behind is now being repurposed at that facility in Peachtree City So they've got trucks coming and going every single day, 24 hours a day, some of which are coming straight from Kennedy Space Center. Then we went to GM Dicron in Griffin, technically Pike County, but with a Griffin address. And they manufacture components that were actually on the Artemis II ship itself. So 3 companies, 17 companies in total from Georgia support the Artemis II mission, 3 companies directly from my district, and I was thankful that Channel 2, Channel 11, and Channel 46 came down to cover it.
So what's your projection? Are we going to have a space base on the moon and then go to Mars?
Well, the Artemis II is the precursor to Artemis 3. Hopefully 28, 29, that's the year in which they want to return astronauts to the moon. And they eventually want to, hopefully reach Mars and beyond. But I mean, look, we can, as we should, talk about the problems here on Earth today. But you see those photos of Earth. There's a great picture that was taken of Earth, and a great quote from it is recorded in this photo is every living human, with the exception of 4 who are now orbiting our moon. So it puts into perspective when you see a tiny little blip, which is Earth, and all the problems we have on it. Very much puts it into perspective. So. Excited to see what happens, and what I really hope from this, and one of the reasons why I administered that tour last week of these suppliers, I really hope it inspires a whole other generation of Americans to reach for the stars and extend well beyond them.
Well, it's satisfying to have a rebirth of the culture that is positive and looking beyond, ourselves. It was just like we talked at the beginning about no man left behind. Those things are important to a culture.
Well, and you remember the moon landing, so it's going to be fun to experience that again, and hopefully.
I'm trying to go through this program without giving away my age, and if I started on a rant on Jimmy Carter, that would give away my age, and so I'm going to try to avoid that. Anyway, I can tell you so much about that. But before we go, important part of what you do in your office is constituent services in the district. How are you handling all that? Because that's a never-ending responsibility.
Well, I mean, you pointed out 2 years ago when we did this interview that my predecessor had some good plaudits on constituent services. So I'm proud to have retained his constituent services team. My district office is led by Joseph Brannon, who himself was a radio executive down in Columbus.
26 years, I believe.
So he understands radio very well. And but I look, I mean, first and foremost, the proof is in the results. Our office has returned millions of dollars to constituents who needed that from the federal government. Sometimes it's an IRS issue, sometimes it's others. So we're very proud of that work, and we're proud of also handling cases that don't necessarily have a playbook, but as we noted, that family that lost a loved one at the hands of an illegal immigrant, they reached out to our office. A lot of testimonials that family gave in support of what we were able to achieve for them. But ultimately, that's the congressman's job. And just for everyone listening, just as a reminder, in addition to representing you in Washington and articulating your voice, I should note, by the way, I have not missed a vote. There's only 12 members of Congress who have never missed a vote in their congressional careers. I'm one of those 12 right now, so I'm very proud of the fact that I've got a perfect attendance record, because I think it's important. Every time there's an issue before our country, you're given a vote through your congressman, and that's me. So I want to make sure I'm there for you. But in addition to that, constituent services, what does that mean? If you've got problems with Social Security, if you've got problems with Veterans Affairs benefits, if you've got problems with any other service from which you receive from the federal government, my office is there for you. And likewise, even if it's as trivial as renewing a passport or needing an expedited passport, that's something that we excel at. So my district office is located in Newnan, but obviously we're very virtual these days. You can always sign up online for information you may need or give a call to the office. But we'd be proud to serve you, and it's exciting to be here in Carrollton.
Coweta is not that far from here. Some of our signals get down pretty well into Newnan. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you for coming in. I've enjoyed it. We went the full hour, which is a little unusual for us, but we, just took advantage of you being here.
Well, I'll close by saying one thing I'm most proud of thus far is I've brought now 8 members of President Trump's cabinet to our congressional district. No other district in the country has gotten this type of support, and that's in large part because of the relationships I earned through my 9 years of service to President Trump. I am very soon going to bring a cabinet member to to Carroll County. So look forward to sharing that with you when the time comes. And
I'll have you know, the Kelly Loeffler's second interview was done right here in this room.
Nice.
And I was behind Martha Zeller, so we kind of introduced her to the further than Martha did to the microphone.
Well, you were kind to host Jim Jordan, one of my close friends.
That was a lot of fun.
And
that was a lot of fun.
Looking forward to reaching out to you when we get this locked in for this next cabinet member to visit Carroll.
We thank our thanks to Congressman Brian Jack. We thank our sponsors. Go out and make it a great day. God bless our troops. You're in tune to WLBB Carrollton.